will come off.
The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
Well, let me take time out to say a very special good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Hard Talk After Work Line Power 102 Digital Wednesday. Today, our special host is Farid Ali. Let me say hi and a very special good afternoon to Farid Ali.
Good afternoon, David. It's always good to hear your voice. And today we have another action-packed afternoon with no other than our very special friend, Mr. Reynold Howard. Mr. Howard, it's good to see you. I'm seeing you online. You can turn your volume on and join us.
Yes, turn on your microphone.
Mr. Howard has assistants, right? He's not like me. I'm a one-man show here. Mr. Howard has assistants.
Yeah.
And female assistants too.
Always is the best assistant.
So you're probably a little more senior than in your younger years, but you haven't lost your touch. You have female assistants.
Well, but as a ball player, you have to have touch.
I hear you. It's good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to be a part of the program this afternoon. What peeves me sometimes, I mean, unlike, you seem to be very okura with the technology in terms of at least you can get assistance. Sometimes when I call upon some of our local artists and producers and so on, people involved in the industry, one of the limitations that we often have is they're not in tune with the technology. It's difficult for them to not deal with a one-on-one interview. So I'm saying that to say that I really hope that we can have more artists learning to use the technology, or at least sourcing persons around them who could assist them, because when we want to do interviews and shows like this, it's so difficult when we struggle with the technology. I myself, not too hot with it, I have people assisting me who I feel to mention, but I'm not a one-man show. So welcome, Mr. Howard. Thank you so much to the listening public. Who we have this evening is no other than Mr. Reynold Howard. Mr. Howard has been involved in local culture, in songwriting, in producing, in arranging for many, many years. We're blessed to still having with us. We've lost so many of our artists, producers, cultural aficionados and aficionados through the years, but we're also thankful for those who are still with us. So, Mr. Howard, we're not making any pronouncement or prognosis on your longevity, but we're grateful to have you.
Thanks.
Let's get straight into the discussion. Where we were on the last occasion, we were generally talking about writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that your forte has been writing, but I want to evolve the discussion a bit. When we look at the industry as we speak right now, and I'm just seeking your opinion in terms of you being somebody involved over a period of years, so much so decades. When we look at the industry, who are some of the generational talents or the persons that you look at now that the general public could look forward to in the future? Do you see any mavericks, any persons with real talents out there that stand out?
They have a lot of people with talents, but they are unknown because we always had a ghost community when it comes to writers. Mm-hmm. That people wasn't okra with the copyright and whatnot, so they were doing work and peddling it for next to nothing. But the stalwarts have been, over the years, people like Merchant and Winsford Devines and GB, but there are a lot of writers in between who never got recognition because they never look at the art as something that they could benefit from financially, and they were fooled or tricked into just doing work for certain people for thank you. So that's
You as one of the more experienced persons in the industry, have you tutored or assisted in terms of mentoring some of these young writers or trying to assist them in any way in terms of teaching them
well,
the
I
ropes?
have not, in a sense. If people come to me, I don't go out and they ask an opinion, and I will express an opinion. I can tell them how to go about certain things. But a lot of people now, they don't come to the elders. They prefer to peddle what they're peddling.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why we have, take the Parang Soka, for instance. That is why we have a lot, what I call desecration of the Parang Soka, because they're singing any vulgarity, and where it's a spin-off from the Parang, which was religious based, and they're singing all kind of thing. But that's the era we in, and people enjoying it, and they're telling it good. So what are you gonna do?
Let's touch on that a little bit, seeing that you brought it up. I was recently carrying a dialogue with the vice president of the Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to over extensively quote her because I'm trying to arrange to have her as a guest on our program, and maybe she could express her views more directly. But basically, she was harping on the same vein that you just touched on, that there are a lot of people out there who singing what she would consider to be soca Christmas music, not necessarily of the Parang orientation. So she's creating a distinction. She appears to be creating a distinction that there's a difference between the traditional Parang music and the Parang theme, and there's a genre associated with Parang, as opposed to when people sing songs about Christmas. It's a different thing altogether. Could you walk us through that distinction, because it seems that you're on the same page there? Do you see a difference?
There is a difference, but a lot of people doing Christmas calypsos and saying it's Parang. Saying it's Parang Soca. But and they're not even using, a lot of them, the traditional Parang instruments. So it's like we have a lot of like Christmas calypsos. So it would be good. He may get a hit or two, and it would stand up for a year or two. But the Parang music is everlasting.
How would you define a Parang song? What is Parang?
Well, Parang is a traditional music that came from Venezuela. I was taught, and I spoke to him in the early days. I had a lot of discussions. Sylvester Mata, who came from Venezuela. I know his family, his daughter and his nieces and thing. And before I got involved in Parang Soca, I went down to Siparia, I believe it was, and had a discussion with him, and he walked me through the work he had done, how we go about it. And he was a very good composer, because he composed a lot of work in the oldies for Daisy Vozet. He had the ready mix serenaders, and from that he did 2 albums, and then I did one. I do one album for him, tribute to Sylvester Mata. He received the Governor General Award many years ago, and he discussed with me, and I like what he was saying, and I fashioned my thing more on the spiritual side, which he was guiding me about. And I went to Daisy a couple times, and I sat on the culvert till the band, La Divina Pastora, had finished practice, to talk to them, to bring them down to KH in the days to do an album. And we became friendly, and then I decided to do the spin-offs, which is the Parang Soca because I was very closely attached to Wayne Flores and them, Flores de San Jose with Ronnie Kalicharan and Wayne. Well, Rain played on all my work. Ronnie Kalicharan played mandolin on all the work too. And we became friendly. And actually, when Silver Stars started there, Parang and Parang Soca, I took Daisy, San Jose, and Francine, who started that show at Silver Stars for them. And, each year I was doing a Parang, so I did Hooray Hurrah in, I think, 79. Then I did Parang Parang in 80. And then in 81, I wrote I Maria, Christmas is Love, Foolish Man. So I keep the spirituality that the Hooray Hurrah was on the birth of Christ, I Am Maria was on the mother of Christ, and was trying to keep Christ in the Christmas because I believe taking the cue from the Parang, that was the way to go. And those tunes playing over 40 years now, and anytime you play it, it's sung and fresh. So at least I recognize that something was done right.
If it is we were to identify some of the key ingredients of a Parang song, basically from what you're saying is the song ought to be centered around the birth of Christ, the Christ child. When we examine some of the music out here, people tend to sing about the festival that is Christmas. You can correct me if we talk here one piece of pork.
Well, to each his own. You see, what happened? Let me tell you what happened in the early days. As a founder member of the copyright, none of the Parang music was registered. So Parang was considered traditional work. So what the early, I don't want to go into name call, what the early people did is they took the melodies from Parang songs and they made words to it.
Right.
Because it wasn't registered to anybody, the music. And so it started there. And then everybody has its, probably to use the word unique, might be wrong, but everybody has a preference to what they want to do. In my case, if I was doing work or poetry or anything, I had first had to show it to my children. So I try to keep it at a level where they will appreciate what the work are doing, rather than somebody had to call them and say that crap and that vulgarity of father. You see, the worst part of this whole thing was when they started to use double attach in Parang and Parang Soca. It was to me a desecration of the Parang and Parang Soca music. But since John Public loved it and he was enjoying it, it encouraged the writers now to write in that vein.
So would you say that the commercialization of the season and the festival caused the culture, or would have triggered persons going in a different vein? In other words, commercial success took precedence over the traditional Parang.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then you can't vex a man for how he thinks. So if that's the way he thinks, and that's how he would express himself. Now, it's like in everything we're doing, if we live in a society and nothing good is happening, you wouldn't get no nation building songs. But if nice things are happening, but nice things happen and they're not highlighted because the paper's sensationalizing things that would sell the newspaper, people wouldn't know. Sometimes the carnival have to finish for us to hear a song and say, oh God, that song was in Carnival, boy, that song nice, boy. But it never played during the Carnival season. So there's a lot of things that keeping back the machinery from grinding the cane.
Let's talk about social media and the Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the World Wide Web. You would have come from an era when you want to promote a song, you had to, I would imagine you would have had to approach a radio station or approach a network, approach a media house and say, listen, I have some material here. I think it's healthy, good, strong stuff. I think it's something that the public ought to hear. I would imagine that once you play it for them, if they like it, they run with it. And if they don't, well, they may not play it on the level that you would like it to be played. But how would you say now given the introduction of social media, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, this sort of World Wide Web access, that there is a greater opportunity for artists to put their music out there?
Yeah, but there's a greater opportunity to put the music because you have diverse media houses and stations or whatever you call it now.
Mm-hmm.
But with that now, the volume that we used to get from like a hit record, you don't get again. So it does not encourage a producer to produce work when he can't get sales that can bring returns to him. So what the producer has to do now is to manage the artist. So when the artist get work and whatnot, he can benefit from it because the pendulum has swung. Now, I understand in Germany, they started using, they're going back to the wax. And parts of the states, Miami, are doing it now too. They're going back to the wax recording. So whereas a hit in the 80s was selling 25,000 and more, even with a hit song now, we don't really have no sales. So the only money you could get has to come from if you're managing the artist. And the artist is a good performer that he could do concerts and perform. Other than that, you're spinning top in mud.
The thing with it is, I follow you. I appreciate what you're saying. When you talk to soca artists, they tell you that if you want to bring the whole band, are charging X amount of money. And you could pay less if it is we just are singing with an accompanying track. So in other words, I need a singer coming and I'm playing the soundtrack and that playing in the background and I'm singing with the soundtrack. So that way you cut costs. I mean, the cost alone is you just have to pay the artist to come and perform. The rest of the band gets side show. Some a host for an event may prefer to have the band because the band could already carry the song, and the performance is what the crowd gets into, and the performance of the entire band with the artist connects with the crowd, connects with the patrons. What is your view in terms of, because what you're describing there is basically an artist, a performer, he having good stuff, good material. But sometimes you can't, if it is he wants to push his song and he wants to make money and he wants to remain commercially viable, he wants to recoup the money he invests to put his song together. He had to dilute the product on some level, meaning that
that is if he produces it himself. What about if somebody else produces it?
Would that make it more difficult?
And he wants to go, as you say, how he going? How is the person getting back their money? And after you do that 1 year, you're not going to take chances to do it again. Because a lot of times that the DJ would take a song, he play it, he make it popular, but he in fact every night how much of that going to the composer? How much of that going to the singer? If they pay in any sort of royalties at all.
And how much money the musicians making? Because if it is you're
well,
resting a soundtrack, the musicians are making nothing.
Well, this is the whole point. And the musicians have to live as well, because some of them living by it. Some of them playing music for a living. How are they going to survive unless they're not one of the top bands like Montano or Kes and they're touring? But how are they going to survive? Because the whole pendulum has swung now in thing. Because what happens? We take the guy from the States, Private Ryan. He come here and he have effect. He charge in US. He playing all our music. How much of that he paying to cut? We don't know if he paying at all. So it have a lot of screws that need tightening to make the thing proper. But then
what would you like to see happen in order to ensure that things function in a proper way that everybody can benefit? Meaning, COT gets their money. The artists, the musicians, the linkages between and among.
Well, COT has to come up with rules and laws to tighten the screws on where they're missing out on monies, right? Because you might hear a tune playing whole day, whole week, all kind of fat. And then you might meet the guy and say, "Are you write a beautiful song?" He say, "But I make no money, you know." But the fella that sing the song made money.
Mm-hmm.
The DJs who played it, anything made money. But the fella who write the song, because he was a non-existent person in the earlys. The singers didn't want him to be recognized so they could benefit. And when they make a money, they ain't passing the money to him and say, "Well, you have to live too," because it's a kind of dog-eat-dog society we're in. And we don't want to see the neighbor improve their life and things, you know. And this thing is affecting everybody. So is we had to get all the people involved, yourself, your media, COT, the artists, everybody have to get together and come up with suggestions that would benefit all the sectors that keep this thing going, rather than one or two people may make it and the rest can live off. It's like you have people in a profession and they cannot live by it. And they might be excellent musicians or excellent calypso or whatever thing it is, but they cannot live by the profession. So they have to do something else, and then carnival time, you fall in line, and well, I go play with 4 steel band, I go make a little change. And after that, you know, because there's no proper planning. And there's no succession planning.
Let's chat about something here. If it is you have an artist out there, people with real talent, right? Everybody born with a gift. You are a songwriter. You produce. You've been able to harness your talent. There are a lot of people out there with gifts to perhaps write, to produce, but they need opportunities. Sometimes I talk with artists. I recently saw one who I know used to be very popular at one time. We met at UWI. He was doing his university studies and so on. I asked him, "Well, how the music going?" So he laughs and he says to me, he said, "Boy, you know, it takes $10,000 to go into a studio and produce one song." He said, and when you produce the song, you have to be able to promote the song. And if it is the media houses and helping you promote it, you ensure to make back the money you put out. He went so far to tell me, he said, "I had to hide and spend money behind my wife back to produce a song a year." And then she find out I spend wee money behind a song that never really go anywhere, and he said to save my marriage, I'd have done that.
Yeah,
So,
well, that is how it happens. And then in the early too, people were paying singers, writers next to nothing for a song. And so the people who were living from it, brilliant people like Merchant, exceptionally brilliant, Devines, die poor.
but my question is this, I appreciate that. My question is this, the people who, to set up a studio to be able to go and produce an environment where you could capture the music and record the music properly, a professionally done production, that takes money. The man who opens that studio perhaps don't have no musical talent, but he inherit money. He have money. He realize that the industry have money in it. He have the money to put out, and he had to bring people like yourself in, or people with your kind of skill set. He had to find artists, but the money that it takes to produce this song now, the poor man, the fellow with the talent to sing, and he can't afford to pay to do that. So he's being frustrated from the word go, unless it is somebody see him and like him and decide to give him a chance, because they tell him themselves, if we invest in this boy.
Yeah, but it's very risky too, because look, the banks don't like to lend money for music and studio and thing. They don't see that. They don't see. A lot of people don't really value the culture and the arts. We might only value after the person who is brilliant passes and he say, you know, he was really good, so and so and so. And it's when he's struggling at all levels, is when they need help. When the athlete developing is then he need help. When he reach the world stage and he doing well, he don't need help again, because he have Adidas contract, he have Puma contract, you have all these, everybody coming to you. But it's when you're at the ground level, is when you need help. No, we don't have a culture. Say, look, we have a office that we go in and what we discussing here, we bringing in everybody and we discuss throughout ideas and say, this is how we want to move the music from A to B to C. We don't have that. We don't have that. If you look at Jamaica, at all levels, in sport, in culture, they have that. They have the sponsors in athletics, sponsoring an athlete with potential and what. So you don't have to worry, you could run. Then they set up the thing in such a way that the talent scouts come in because they want you in their university, because they be on the competitive circuit. Look at a piece of stupidness that happened here. We had J. Hugh Gordon with the potential he had. Instead of going to the States, to a university where he could be competitive on the circuit, he stayed here at UE. After a couple of years, he couldn't beat none of the fellas he was beating. Because we don't have that level of competition. No, you can look at it another way too. Take our cricket. We were on top for 21 years. It's about 23 years now. We at the bottom. That I am so proud that I could go on YouTube and look at Lara, some of his innings that he played. We have that level again. We don't have that dedication again. And you could call it anything you call. It's the same thing happening. So the odd person would make it. So we're not producing as we used to produce in the 50s and 60s and all the different disciplines. Because too, from the time a child reaches 17 years, the mother get a little boy with potential, a car. Evening he gone to bishops or convent, he pick up his girlfriend, he gone home. And the most amount of talent in the secondary schools now, the fellas with the real talent not playing no sport, they're not doing anything.
All right. We have in this country Pantrin Bego, Tuco, right? We have the Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, we have organizations that receive subventions from the state. So I don't think there's a lack of money. What is your view in terms of the role and the input? Are these institutions positively impacting upon the industry in the way that they ought to?
Well, they're not impacting the way they ought to, for the simple reason that we lack at all levels people with managerial skill. We don't have it. And people seeing it as a quick fix. I get in this position, I could make a little dollar for myself. And they're not looking at what will happen after you go on or nothing, because it's a kind of rat race. And if you're favored and you could get handout from whoever in charge, you say, I could live with that. So you're not interested in moving the thing forward. And that's the problem.
Isn't that
it has become a culture now. It has become a culture, and it's so predictable that people could tell you, sit down and say, look what happened here. This is going to happen. And we're going nowhere. Because it affects us all who is involved. It affects every one of us. Whether we have made it, whether we're rich, whether we're poor, because the poor guy doesn't know how to turn, whether to turn left or right, and who to speak to that could guide him along the right path. Because we don't have that again, because we have a society that we don't care about each other. He make it, he don't even care whether his brother and sister make it. And he make it, he isolate himself, he don't even go home and look for his brother and sister. And that's the and we're fighting like crabs in a barrel and nobody benefiting, because he ain't benefiting, but you don't want beat to benefit.
The observation that you're making is an observation that on some level it's obvious to you and me. Why are we repeating the same mistakes year in, year out, decade after decade? Because if it is we were to look at the landscape 5-10 years ago, are you saying, or are you in a position to say that it would have been no different? Meaning that we produce the people we produced in the past in terms of the industry. That we say Parang music. We produced the Daisies in the past, but Davy was a generational talent. She would have been an exception to the rule. But where's the next person thereafter?
Well, before Daisy, we had a girl called Gloria Alcazar. She was fantastic too. And now we have Jarasa, which is exceptional. But a lot of the people that come into the secondary schools have a lot, and the churches have a lot of good voices, but the churches, the girl in the church don't want to come and sing in the tent or sing thing. That's beside the point. The secondary schools will have children playing Parang, the fun thing, and after they leave school, because everybody wants the child to go and get a degree and to get a big job and things. So they really, so the stream of the talent, musical talent, was coming from the ground, the poor people. We had all the hornmen coming from the Tagarigo orphanage, from Seldonkan and right down the line.
I think he came from the same place.
Well, the Fausto, Errolins, most of the musicians, right? But the point is, after these guys pass, they have nobody. Well, Roy Cape is doing a good job trying to assist and have the youngsters play music and things. But a lot of the children and a lot of the homes, the parents want the children to play music, and so it's a different ball game. It's a different ball game. And when we see the potential, we don't try to, where we had the village years ago, pushing the child and assisting and things. We don't have that help anymore. You're on your own. So what happens when the guy with talent don't know how to make it? He just give up. And sometimes you hear and say, boy, I heard a fella sing, boy. Well, that red fella real good. Where he come out? And he was there all the time.
Yeah.
But nobody didn't take him on.
But you use the sporting analogy moments ago. If it is we were to look at the secondary school football, when we examine the players that we've produced who've gone on to have lucrative contracts abroad, we're not just talking about the Dwight Yorks who went to the English Premier League, but we have many players who would have had talent who may not have been able to infiltrate the English leagues, but they went to Korea, they went to Japan, they went to different parts of the world, they went to Eastern Europe. We've had players who went there. We've even had some players who couldn't get into the English Premier League. They got into the Championship, which is the division under the Premiership, and to even lower leagues. They played conference football in the UK. The opportunities came because from secondary school, scouts would have seen them. Scouts who looking for talent would have come to Trinidad. A player may have referred another player. So in other words, some player would have introduced younger talents or younger potential players to other clubs, and the opportunities came.
Yeah,
what sort of mentoring is taking place in the industry to bring it back to where we are?
The level, if you go to a secondary school game now, we're not producing the type of talents we produced from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even the early 80s. We don't have that level of talent again. We have some talent, we don't have that level. Now, one of the things that caused the slide is up to the late 60s, 70s, the college league was producing because we were playing in the big league, the Port of Spain League, so the boys were developing faster, playing against the men who were more or less semi-professionals or professionals. We don't have that again. So we're not producing. If you look between Boland to Thompson, and you see it's 10 years from here, from Lara to this one, 10 years, 15 years, we're not producing that, and the love for sport isn't there anymore.
The state has been investing in culture. We use the sporting analogy. I'm saying, people like yourself, have you been able to work with younger persons, seeing that you have the vision and the mind and you understand the dynamics of the
I was at QRC for 12 years. I started the QRC Pan Assam and Providence merged, and we went Panorama. But I built it from the ground. I called my friend Ian Jones in Canada, and a teacher, Roland Samuel, was in my time. And we started the QRC Pan Assam. And I built it for 3 years. But I couldn't get funds here. The old boys didn't want to fund it. This one didn't want to fund it without calling names. And I had to go to Washington, to the old boys in Washington. And they gave me $8,000 US to start the program. And I told them, give me 3 years. In 3 years' time, I got that thing going, and we went Panorama for the first time and win. In 3 years, dead on 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And after 12 years, I say that it was like a full-time job. I see the class of 2014. All those guys are professionals today, which I'm happy. I see children that are more or less adopt, did well, and I am happy for that. As a matter of fact, the principal called me back to organize a tour to Washington for 2024. I tell him I would do it because I like to see the children grow apart from the schoolwork that they develop in other fields and things. And it's nice because out there they played at the Reagan Center, the Kennedy Center, the High Commission. They took them to Howard University for the present president to talk to them, show them how easy it is to come here, walk them through the syllabus and what it's all about. And these children did well. Some of them left and went up there. And 2024, we are now organizing, talking to the pan side up there to use the pans and whatnot. So that the children. So, but it's a lot of hard work. And now everybody you call want to come and do something, they want pay. But our work is free. I did that. That was giving back. Because I got a lot from this country and the system. I am prepared to give back. So I am concerned, so I would help. Right? But everybody you call now to help to do something, they want to know how much you're paying. You call a little girl who could hardly play the pan. The mother come and say, how much are they paying? So we come, everything now is about money. And we lost touch with the reality of what it is we really want to achieve and what we want the children to become. There was a little guy, he was one of the captains, I won't call name. He tell me this, sir, you don't like me, Every time I come here you have to talk to me and pull me aside. Well, I usually talk to the children one-on-one, take them on the bench outside the panel, but I can't talk to them. I say, well, here what happening? Ask your mother and father to come here. I want to talk to them. Every evening, before we start to play the pans and to learn the music, he taking all the pan men to sweat. Now, none of them ain't play no football for KRC, no cricket, no athletics. I say, when Miss Clement comes here at 4 o'clock, the clock ticking, I have to find money to pay her when she finish. Look what you're doing. He graduated now from UE, second class honors, and he texts me and he tells me, sir, now see what he was trying to do for me all the time. I say, well, it's kind of late, but you see it. I'm glad. Because, and you know what? It's the children with the most talent who give him the most trouble.
But I would imagine that this is where mentoring comes in. Have you as a writer, producer, have you been managed to create linkages with the stalwarts in the business? Let us say Barons, Crunter.
Well, not the singers. Mm-hmm. I had since in the early 80s, I had a meeting with the main writers. And I told them, without calling names, we have to standardize prices for song. And they say he's a madman. A guy came to my well-known calypsonian, came to my house. He rang the bell. He said, I want to do a song for me. I said, how much you paying for the song? He said, $500. I said, $500? I look like a spranger, Uh-huh. And it have men who jump at it and take it. So once you start to prostitute yourself, people will treat you as a prostitute. So I say I rather write a song for a primary school child to sing in a composition and win and get the child the song than to sell a song for $500. $500 can't buy anything. And therein lies the problem. And if you refuse, there are 4 or 5 people, without calling names, who will take that money. So what are you going to do? You're fighting fire with fire, not with water or sand. You're fighting fire with fire. It doesn't make sense. Now, the fellow that doing that, he don't care. He got $500, but how long $500 go last year? And you're living by that. You're living by that. So so you gotta look at yourself and say, we could only get from life what we put into life. And if that is what you want to do, fine. But there are some you can talk to. There are some students you can talk to and some students you can't talk to. Because if you raise your voice, they tell their parents, and the parent come in school to raise your voice to my son for and all this kind of thing. But there are children you could pull aside and talk to. And I told you a story already about this young man who the 2 MTS cleaners brought to me on the court of the school. And I say, look, his sister had put a pallor on the pavement in Mongdo to send him to QRC. And all he wanted was guidance and lessons. And what he did was remarkable. And I thank those 2 ladies for that, Miss Vero and Miss Kerry, for introducing me to that little boy. I called my secretary. I said, Angela, we have a child to look after. She said, what he wants? So going to the States. And she brought it, whatever he wanted. And he told me, Mr. Howard, I guarantee you 9 ones in CXC. I say, that good? He get 8 ones and a 2. He asked me for money to query the 2.
Mm-hmm.
In advance, he come first in French in the Caribbean, first in Spanish in the Caribbean. Brilliant mind. He wanted to go Oxford, but the government didn't have the money. He went out to look Jack and he licked them up. He at United Nations now, but he wants to go Oxford to do his master. But it's
fortunately for him, he saw or he knew two individuals who would have ushered him in your direction, and luckily for him, that sort of intervention assisted. My concern is when you have, allow me to use another analogy, with all these steel band yards we have all over this country. If it is a man lives in East Port of Spain or West Port of Spain, you have All Stars in East Port of Spain, you have Renegades, you would have bands in Belmont, you have bands, if you have a little musical talent and you're interested in Panny walking in the yard, he might get an opportunity to showpiece what little talent he has on our pan. And if it is somebody in the yard likes him, he in the band on some level, and he could be ushered into the junior band, the state side, the big band. At some level, if it is the band can accommodate him, they put him in touch with a medium band or a small band, and he gets opportunity. The question is, this young man's example that you just shared with us, he was able to access an opportunity because there was a forum for that. There are a lot of persons out there who
we have to create the forum. We have to create that forum. We have to create the forum. And there are a lot of guys from my era who you could pick up your phone and call and say, I need you to do so-and-so for this little boy at our alma mater. And he's not even querying it. They're doing it. You know why? Those of us who make it have to give back. You help one. This has nothing to do with race, because I got accused for helping somebody that wasn't a Negro. I say, that didn't happen by plan. It happened design. The person was a member of the band. He was having problems. I am in charge. I can't say because you're black or you're white, I'm not helping you. I'm supposed to help you. And I set up a board with people thinking like me and say, X1 books, we get it for him. Why want uniform? We get it for him. Because if you're not comfortable, you can't come there and produce in the pan room when you have money to go home or you didn't eat for the day and all these problems, and that ain't happening nowhere. Because my son at QRC used to give his lunch every day to a guy who he didn't have school feeding then, who said today is his sister day to eat. Is as bad as that, eh?
Yeah.
And we not really seeing it. And when a child could tell you, we by Fatima picking up my second boy, say, Dad, look at this. BMW, Benz, this, that. You see, what's next door? All the children from Mokorapo walk into City Gate, walk into Carnage, walk into Digger Martin. He say, in 10 years' time, a child was showing me that, He said, you're going to see what's going to happen. Because the children, how you think they feel when they pass by Fatima? They don't feel they belong. And to some of us, that is nothing. But a child was showing me, said, Dad, this is a problem we're going to have. This is a serious problem.
Let's chat about the artists that we see now. When I look at I'm handpicking example, right? I have a bias in me. I recently attended the opening of the Panorama season at Exodus Spaniard, and I was there. I already went there to listen to Pan. The crowd wasn't a very disciplined crowd, so I stayed back and I listened to the artists, the performers. When I heard Nyla Blackman, in my mind's eye, I saying, but Nyla Blackman on a different level to some of the young talent that is coming through. Simply meaning, I mean, I know I'm aficionado. I don't have a superior musical mind, but in my mind's eye, listening to performers and seeing them perform, you know, somebody who could deliver a song and somebody who have genuine talent. How would you, when you look at the talent out there now, I'm of the view that the Nyla Blackmans of this world, the Nyla Blackmans of Trinidad and Tobago, may be on the cusp of, if given the opportunity, taking the music that is soca to a point where we not have right now. Are you seeing, are there any artists out there in your mind's eye that you listen to that you
Well,
see?
you have Nyla, you have Kes, you have Voice, you have Chucky, you have a few artists with enormous potential. But it has to be channeled in the right directions, and like everything else, they have to be given the opportunities.
Now, Kes and Voice may have already gotten those opportunities. Chucky would have already won to the March Gras. If I'm correct, I think it's 2013, 2014, those consecutive years.
Yeah, somewhere there, 14 and 15 or somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So they may have already crossed that threshold and entered into the realm of being successful and making money and out there and popular and sought after. So we happy for them. The dreadful thing about it is, where's the next generation coming from? We wouldn't like to see that the next generation, the gap between the Kes and Voice and so on is a wider gap than you know than
Well,
we projected.
we will always have talent because Trinidad is a society that it's flooded with talent. But the talent has to be channeled in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, when they hear the voice twice on the radio, they figure there's a big star and they start to carry on and things. But it's a progression, step by step. And you have to say, look, in the next 10 years, I would like to be here, and you set goals. And you try to think, because look, all right. Look at the potential we have with a fella like Bugsy Sharp, who's a genius in the pan. Andy Narell don't have Bugsy talent. Andy Narell booked up for 52 weeks in the States. He went all South Africa, all up. When Bugsy languishing here, looking for little gigs here and there. Look at the talent. So it brings me to the point now that the highways and byways of the world littered with talent. Is, like I said before, you could only get from life what you put into life. Jimi Hendrix was doing something with the guitar that people still trying to figure out and try to do. So we have the talent here. Is the talent in Nyla Blackman's case? She grew up in a home with Shorty as the father, and Shorty had burst into the seams with talent. Everybody don't have that around them. Right? When Blue Boy came to town, the Soca Baptist, and I heard the song, A Cage, I told Romy Abraham he has a monster on his hand. He said, what? I said, I hope you could deal with it. You have a monster, that song. And the song take off, Blue Boy take off, and look where it reached. And he was no fluke, because that fella have real talent. I don't know if you ever seen him play soccer. He came to QRC and they were warming up Lincoln Phillip and a few, and he come and he feel and play and score goal. People was amazed. That guy have real talent, you know. Play the pan. He has real talent. He has so much talent that in a clash, Sparrow was saying, don't let Blue Boy sing before me, you know. Because when Blue Boy finished, he mashed up the crowd. Marjorie B. Pat Singh went on the stage and catch the power. That is how strong he was. And when they feel it was a fluke, he come the next year again. Real talent. That boy have talent to burn. So the talents we have is channeling the talent and getting them from point A to point B, instead of staying here and be stratified and stagnated. It's like Ellie Manet, the great pan tuner, had to go at a university in the States, tune pan and thing, and get to make real money, because, like I say, a lot of the pan tuners had to go outside, because you cannot earn a money in the country with 100 steel band and all this thing they're talking about and thing. And the pioneers are everything poor.
But in all fairness, Mr. Howard, we have a population here of 1 million people, right? Let's say 1.3, let's say 1.3 million. So that is a seasonal sort of climate. In terms of the venues to host events, we don't have a proper venue, Napa, we have Sapa, we have a facility in Tobago. Queen's Hall was recently, in the last few years, refurbished on a certain level. But if it is you want to have a proper show, security, parking, you need a venue. We don't really have venues that with the acoustics that could really carry up a show.
Because again, we have people that are designated as culture minister and this minister. And they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. So we can reach there, but not even withstanding that. When the Big Five, Exodus and these boys get and they go in the Savannah, they fold the Savannah in a show. And we should have more of that, so that Pan Trinbago now could have funds coming to them. Because why no wait on everything that the government must give it, that the government must give it this. And look, we had an independence calypso competition, and on the eve of that, they now get the money. Come on. They shouldn't be waiting on government to do that. The association should be doing that. That's an association event. Have shows. You have some of the best singers here. Have shows. Bring people and raise money to lift your organization. The government don't only have culture to say about. The government have the nation to say about roads, bridges, this, that, the other. It's not a priority.
All right. We're talking culture. The Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, you are not the voice of it, but I'm just referencing them because they were recently in the newspaper talking about they need a home and they need $1.5 million to manage the season to stay afloat. Staying afloat is not their language. I'm saying basically what it is describing is structurally they have needs. But when we look at the steel band movement, the steel bands are making an effort outside of government assistance. We have phase 2 in West Port of Spain. We have Renegades in East Port of Spain. We have Exodus in East Trinidad.
All the top steel bands.
We have the Tobago bands, Cats and Jammers and so on. We have Kuva in Joylanders in Central. We have Skiffle Bunch and Fun Clay in South. These steel bands host events and they invite other steel bands and they do things to keep the music alive and to keep the culture alive. And this is outside of government assistance. The Parang Association of Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, unless I'm missing something, do they host events and host each other that if it is you and me or anyone wants to go and listen to Parang this weekend, we have somewhere to go in or off season?
I don't know what they do. And each band try to get work in different places, have their own shows and things, because it's not we really don't have a map to follow and structurally. And like I say, most of the associations lack leadership. And that's where the problem is.
The thing
Because
is,
you
need leadership. Just to slip something in there, you need people. You have leadership. The thing is, you perhaps lack leadership in terms of the persons who are there are more administrators than people with the know-how. Meaning that you have a minister of tourism. I'm just using that as an example, or minister of national security, or a minister in some area. But when you find out their individual background, they may not be steeped in culture, or they may not understand the industry, or they may not have been involved at managerial levels within the industry on some level to understand what are the needs. So they need to be surrounded by a team of persons. For instance, if it is we were to allude to the NCC, the National Carnival Commission have somebody in the incarnation of Winston Gypsy Peters who may understand culture on the level that he understands it because he grew in the industry, if I may put it that way. I'm just using him as an example because he's somebody prominently in our eyes now. I'm not saying that the NCC is functioning in the way on every level that it should be. But clearly, he is there. So there are things that he would be able to bring to the NCC or bring to the ministry based on experience. But we may not have the same sort of personnel in the other areas.
Well, we have to find it. We have to find it. And then the other thing we have, it takes far too long to get things done here. It takes far too long to get things done. Time is of the essence. We don't know how long that we're going to live. And we haven't carnival for X plus Y number of years, say 100 years, and we still having the same perennial problems. We can't find the steel beam for the North Stand. We can't find this. We can't find that. It's nothing new. So we're not really addressing the problems.
For years, for many years, Minshall and other mass producers, if we may refer to them, artists, people with the know-how, they have spoken. Minshall in particular have spoken about the quality of the mask, the quality of costumes, the quality within the industry, the standard not being at the level it ought to have been. In fact, he has gotten to the point where, Minshall hasn't been saying much anymore. He's alive and well, but he isn't making any pronouncements. I don't know if it's
He fed up. He fed up because nothing is happening.
What I'm saying is, we know the Stephen Youngs and the Edmund Hart, the Kalicharans, these people have come and gone. It seems that when we examine the industry, the linkages between Pan, Calypso, the NCC, Carnival and the whole as a product, the problem with you're describing here is not synonymous with any particular area. It seems to be a general morass, a general decline.
Yeah, it's a general decline. I had a friend came from Canada, and he tell me they have a group of them say they will go crop over next time because all he's seeing is tattoo and bumsy. He say they have no creativity in the carnival again.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't seeing nothing out of the ordinary, like Isaga, Merry England, Byzantine Glory. Nothing creative. It's a bad suit you see and vulgarity. So it would come a time when people would say enough is enough. It must happen. Because nothing, what we leave in for the younger ones now who playing in the junior bands to do the same thing.
Right.
So the creativity is not there.
But in all fairness,
the accent is on money. We can make a nice money doing so and so. We don't care about the creativity. The fellas that really played mass in the earlys like Bailey and all these fellas, ain't make money from mass. They love the culture. The people now making money because we're in the era where, as you see, all these medias and all these things, right? It have money in it, but those fellas sacrifice their life because they love culture. Their life is culture. A fella used to play a pan long time, and all he get is a drink of rum. We had a gentleman by the name of George Goddard. I believe he was the first Pan Trinbago president. I grew up in St. James. He used to come to my family. He was an insect vector, whatever it is, going to the yard spraying for. And he did more for Pan without money than all those who after him, who had money. He used to have, as a youngster growing up, they have the festival in Roxy, different thing, and he was going from band to band, cap in hand, trying to get things done for the Pan man. Now we reach a stage where we have association with 7 bank accounts and all this kind of thing, and nothing really not happening. Look at beautiful shows. Pan is beautiful. We in half a years.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we had the next show in the carnival. So come on up. We have it again. So something is wrong. Something has to be wrong. And we're not addressing it. You see, it's like somebody telling you, Fazira, see a son, and he's smoking weed. I'm only using you as an example. See, my son would never smoke weed. The next day, he get hold, and again, a live thing here. I just using you because we're talking.
Yeah.
A neighbor of mine. The next day, he get hold. The neighbor talking. I said, but tell her, I saw the boy and said they talk to his son, they vex with me. You vex with the messenger, you wait till he get old. And that is part of our problem because we're not realistic, we're not close enough, a lot of us, to our children to know what they're doing. It have some people and see the child report in years and don't care about that. So it is a whole, it's a breakdown at all levels. Just this morning I had a discussion with somebody. He said, look, Lara could leave here, go to India, take a side that finished almost second to last and bring them in the first three in the India League. And we're not using Lara here. You know what Mr. Bazarat said? Lara might be too much money. That's what was reported. He never asked Lara. He don't know if he'd do it free. We take Desmond Haynes, one of the best opening batsmen we had, and put him as a selector, not as a batting coach. And we bring somebody from India as a batting coach that nobody knows. Not only that, all the techniques are flawed. Who we go beat? Sad. But that is where we are. And like I say, if nothing is happening, don't expect no set a nation building song, you know. When things happen nice and thing, you're going to see a lot of that will come out. But when nothing is happening, what are you going to do?
My concern is everything you're saying there, we are on all fours with it. It makes perfect sense. The observation isn't a difficult observation to make because when we look at the criminal situation in the country right now, the crime situation, the state of malaise that we all live in, people are afraid to come out of their house.
Right.
I'm not trying to politicize the cultural discussion, but I'm saying that the decline in the arts is impacting in every segment of how we live.
It must. It filters down. It has a trickle-down effect. You see, as a legal person, when the criminality reaches the lower stratas of society, it takes a different form. The guy picks up a gun because he can't go in the bank and get an overdraft for 20 million and get the prime minister to write it off. Mm-hmm. So he picks up a gun. But it's the same thing. Is when it reaches the lower stratas of society, it just takes a different form. That's all that happened. And we're not dealing with it because we're sweeping things under the rug. But this is not a problem for Rowley and Kamla. This is a national problem. We have to solve it. By we, I mean all hands have to be on deck for us to get rid of this malice. Other than that, it's going to continue like that, and we're going to have a blame game, and nobody responsible in a blame game. I blame you, you blame me, and then what? In the meantime, 2-3 people are dead dying.
Well, 500 for the year so far.
Right. People are afraid to call the police in some cases.
Well, the police getting locked up, six get charged this week. So, you're calling the police who got in the guards.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So where we going? Who you going to call? If you take the law into your own hands, you're in trouble too. So who you going to call? And the people who know the children doing crime, the average person going to want to report the child. And if they're in a poor area and they're helping the poor people, the people will turn a blind eye to it. Right. But we have to put structures in place that we have a slow learner, we pull them out and put them in a group or in a school that would help them, because students start to laugh at them, they become bullies and start to beat children. We have to start putting things in place that we know this person cannot stay in this environment, because everybody can be academia, right? But I always tell, you're a good mechanic, open your own shop. He's a good joiner, open your own shop. Because joiner now, we tell a fella, build some kitchen cupboards for me. It's a lot of money. Your bounce car is a lot of money. So the thing is, but you have to want to do good. You have to want to be somebody, and you have to work hard and try your best. If you fail, you don't stop. You try again and try to correct where you went wrong. And we have to, and the younger people, they have so much talent and so much to offer. But sometimes the voices are voices in the wilderness, they're crying out and nobody helping. Because absentee father, the mother had to do 2 jobs to make ends meet. Nobody to talk to the child to make him feel that he belongs and he's loved and all this. It is a sad, sad thing, you know.
In all fairness, the incumbent government, now I'm not batting politically for anybody, I'm just making a reference. They're an incarnation of themselves in a previous dispensation. Simply putting it another way, Patrick Manning had invested in the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and he had a vision to bring back or to reintroduce into the school system music as an education. And what we've seen now between then and now is we've produced a new crop of arrangers. When you speak with them, you ask them, so where did your training come from? And they say, well, I came from UTT, the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and there they were able to develop and formalize the education in some way, and now they get into arrangement. So the investment in terms of culture is there, the support for Panchenbego, the support for Tuku, but it seems that there's a disconnect between the general population and some of the institutions. If I may, having said that, let me bridge another gap. The carnival season is practically upon us. When we look at the tents, the carnival tents have not been making money and have not been drawing crowds on the levels that we would have seen in the 70s and in the 80s. On some level, even the 90s. We're at a stage now where the persons who manage the tents, they tell you that the attendance is poor, and they're not making money, simply meaning you make money from the gates. What in your view needs to be done in order to regenerate the atmosphere in the Calypso tents that would have been?
Is a number of things happening that the tent owners had become stagnant when the all-inclusive fest started, and they could get Calypsonians to come and sing and thing, and Calypsonians realized there was more money outside of the tent than in the tents. And then we had the problem where they started to bash East Indian people and whatnot, and East Indians. I remember Posa, he was the one who first mentioned that to me. Say, stop coming to the tent. And the tent owners did not do anything to spruce the tent so that we could make it attractive to thing, because the tents now become this fella is my good friend. He ain't no good calypso, but he's my friend. He had to sing. And so where you were getting a very high standard that could keep your tent going, you don't have that standard again. And then as soon as some of the fellas make it, they don't want to be no tent again. because they could make more money on their own, like Voice and them, than instead of going in a tent. So is the people in charge have to decide, or in this case, the government have to decide, we're funding this to a point, but you all have to make it work. Because if you're only funding thing and they don't have to make it, the people in charge don't have to make it work, it will never work. And we cannot take taxpayers' money every year and just give to people who are not making progress. It's like I was speaking to my daughter recently. She said, you know, they started now in the States. If you have a class and the whole class failing, the teacher has to go. The teacher has to go. It ain't no friendship here. In other words, we take taxpayers' money, we invest it in this, we expect at worst to break even. So that they have the capital we put in to start back next year. But every year we can be pumping money into something that is not making money. It doesn't make sense.
What you're describing is not reinventing the wheel. It's nothing new. I was a teacher in secondary school many years ago, and I remember one of the complaints that was being made at a ministerial level when you attend the district meetings is that money is being placed in the principal's hand to run a school, to manage a school. And the money isn't small money, it's tens of thousands of dollars. The money is not the government money, it's the people's money, it's taxpayers' dollars. But principals, you become a principal after 15 years of teaching in a secondary school, and you demonstrated that you're deserving of the post, whatever the criteria. But your forte was in teaching. You would have established and built a reputation around being able to present a syllabus, and your seniority gave you a position where you become principal. But that doesn't mean to say that you could manage a school. Managing a school is a different thing. So they started talking about at a ministerial level, what we perhaps need to do in school is have a manager of a school and allow the principal the benefit of managing the staff and managing the departments and in control of the channeling of the education. In other words, harness and control the education aspect of it. But you can't expect the principal to manage money. That was never the teacher's training. So every year you dispense money into the school sands, you disburse the money, and then the PE teacher comes to the principal and say, well, we need money for bats and balls. We need uniforms for the school teams. And then the music teacher, now he gets jealous and he wants money for instruments. And then the principal say, well, we can't give everybody what they want because all the money get done, and this stipend, this subvention had to last the year. So the principal don't know how to manage that money from month to month to ensure that all the needs of the school could be met. So you had to save money for when a child hungry down the road, because the school feeding program may not be able to answer that particular need. You had to save money to look after unforeseen needs that the school may have. What you're describing is it doesn't appear to be anything different from that problem I'm describing there. We're in a situation where we're using taxpayer money and we have the wrong personnel in place, or we have the personnel in place who don't have the know-how and the skill set to manage that money over a sustained and protracted period of time. So every year now, and I'm alluding to the school analogy, what you may have is all the money done in terms of the school subvention. It finished and we have 3 months to go again, and we rally until the end of the year when September comes to get more. Or you hold back and you end up with a surplus of money a month before the new subvention. You know what they're talking in the school system? We have to spend that money out, because if we don't spend it out, when the ministry asks us what we need and they ask us to account for the money that we have, if we have anything extra, we'll say, but all you don't need more money, all you have money. So what we were looking at in the school system is a system where we have a school functioning, but we don't have the principal. The principal, in all unfairness, couldn't don't have the dynamics and the know-how to manage the resources that are made available to. And then when the school not functioning in the way that it is, you're saying, well, the education going down, the money spending, the football team successful, but the music suffering. No fault at the person you have, but it is a soft target to go after the person who is visible. We were making reference to the tents. So the tents, there's a problem in the tent in terms of the reason why the tents have been floundering through the years. When David John Williams recently passed, one of the popular Calypsonians revealed that he was a supporter of the arts. He would invest when it is they need money. But the John Williams of this world have not only passed, there may be another one who willing to put out and invest his private funds or from whatever source he may have. There may not be persons like that who could step forward and assist anymore. Where do you see things going in the next 2 to 3 years? Because I don't want to even talk 10 years down the line.
No, well, the tent owners have to get together and decide how is best to kickstart this thing, to make it viable again, to make it a money spinner, that we could tell the government, this year we don't want your money. We want to show you that we could do it ourselves, and we're reviving this thing.
Mr. Howard, that ain't gonna happen.
Well.
You know, I'm listening to this conversation with such attention. You know, there are lots of things that I think are needed to be put in place if we had to reach to any kind of improvement or to step up the game, so to speak. Writers in America, they band together. I mean, we saw what happened with the people the actors and the writers and all of that. Is it possible in any way, Mr. Howard, that writers can be called to come together to form something like an association or a group of people who will be like a pool for the promising and upcoming artists who cannot write? Are the writers in a position to help groom young writers for the same purpose? Now, why I'm saying this is because I've been advocating for many years, because I am the lip. I call myself the lip for what I call we music. Advocating for a very long time that we need to put in place a music industry. I thought that Napa is the perfect place to be the headquarters for a music industry, in the sense that the writers will have a space, musicians will have a space, the artists and they will have a space, and most importantly, we'll have a promotional and marketing division that will have people who have the ears to hear what a big song is or what a hit could be, you know. And we promote, instead of the artists getting a song together and coming to our radio station to try and get some kind of airplay or to promote this song. You know, I think we have long gone past that, especially in this digital world. What I think we are lacking is that sort of industry, because we hear people. I did millions of interviews where the artists will come in and say, you know, in the music industry. So I asked them, hold on, what is the music industry you're talking about? Where is it? You know, and they just say it as a way of speech when it comes to carnival and all of that, and songwriting and stuff. We don't get music produced during the year, back in the days, we had Merchant and Day with Umba Ya Yao, and we had a lot of songs were produced beyond the carnival season and stuff. But what I'm thinking is that why is it so impossible? Because we have NCC, the umbrella body, then we have TUCO, we have Pantrinbago, we have the Carnival Bands Association, and all of that. What I see happening is just a repetition of the same thing over and over, and we're not going forward. I mean, masquerading, it should be mandated that masquerading be a priority in the sense that I don't mind. I spoke to some heads already who said the bikini and the beads and thing is it have a space. Okay, it has a space, but I think bands should be allowed if they want to. Now they have the drum at the National Stadium up on that side, the Jean-Pierre Complex area and this thing. So what I'm saying is that if there are party bands that are just into the beads and the bikinis and stuff, if that is a modus operandi of these kind of people who want to be revelers, I don't see it as masquerading. I think it should be mandated by the Ministry of Culture and by extension, or by NCC and by extension, the Ministry of Culture, that we masquerade and show the world what is Trinbagonian culture. It could be on an international scale to be. I remember we spoke about the Baileys and the Lee Hyungs and the Hearts and all of them. And I could remember every year it was important that they produce mass that told stories. We had Roman mass, we had all kind of international statements made with masquerading. In Trinidad and Tobago, I remember people like Mac Williams and they doing the Book of Reef and, telling stories of Trinidad and Tobago. So I think it should be mandated that bands who want to compete, like let's say at the Queen's Park Savannah and the Adam Smith Square, which are two national judging points and stuff, that they must. It has to be mandated that we produce that kind of mass. I'm not saying that those same bands that are masquerading won't have a section where it's beads and bacchanal and revelry and stuff, because I work for NCC as a voice and announcer, and I listen to the people. I will get off my seat and move around the crowd because I'm into the media thing. So I would like to tell a story of what happens outside of announcing. And when I talk to a lot of people who used to go to the Savannah religiously on Carnival Monday and Tuesday, they are telling me they are fed up of seeing this kind of flesh parade and stuff. And it's difficult for senior people to come to the Savannah and see the kind of behavioral patterns of the masqueraders. No, I shouldn't say masqueraders. The revelers who are on stage. They are not comfortable with that. So you don't find on Carnival Monday and Tuesday that the grandstand is a packed place anymore. You don't see the people coming out there anymore with their baskets and their coolers and settling down to enjoy mass, a production or a showcasing, an expose of what is Trinbagonian culture. And like I said, extended to world issues and different cultures and stuff. So I don't think we are getting anywhere if it is not mandated that happens. Where Calypso is concerned, like we all know, the racism that seeped its way into Calypso took out a lot out of Calypso. So if we know, we all, the three of us here and the listening people would know that caused, I don't want to put it this way, but the East Indian people pulled away. They don't depend on NCC or the government. They have their own.
Believe it.
They have their own Chutney Soca Mona competition. As a matter of fact, this year it was free entrance in Skinner Park. They have their sponsors and all of that. Is it that we should allow corporate people to make that kind of statement in order to have what we can say is a real carnival, the real Trini carnival? Now the corporate people are involved in it. You know, the humor and the bliss and the tribe and the other bands like that. They are being controlled by corporate people. I know that for a fact. But they insist on having it that way because you see, they have now they have drones that will be flying over these bands and they're making movies. So, like you said, Mr. Howard, it's a money making thing. No,
Yeah.
it's nothing like creativity and the expose of that kind of creativity. So I think the government should mandate instead of just pumping money into these institutions every year that it's a kind of recurring decimal kind of thing that it's happening all the time. I think we should be mandated that listen, carnival, we want bands to masquerade we culture, Trinbagonian culture, world issues, the things that are happening. Let us showcase that in the carnival. And the revelry has its part to play too. I'm not saying that we will leave them out because they look forward to that. That creates a big input, especially from people who come from America and England and Europe and all of that. But I think that is what is taking down the whole thing. Calypso, on the other hand, has become what I call lamentation and calypso songs. Even the accompanying music has lost the calypso flavor. We are seeing monarchs being crowned with lamentations. I've listened to a lot of calypsos. I play them for spite on my program all the time that were left out completely out of the monarchy. So one of them didn't even make it to Skinner Park, and two of them made it to Skinner Park but was not chosen to be in the Savannah. So I don't know if the discussion should be put together for that kind of administration of the presentation of carnival in general. I won't talk pan. I have a problem with pan too because to me, it's about time pan Trinbago to pan should be like FIFA to football. So there's so much things we are lacking in, and there's a sort of lackadaisical and a sort of negligence in doing what we have to do to showcase carnival as it used to be. That's my take. I've been listening attentively all the way.
Well
David,
done.
I follow you completely. Mr. Howard, I'm listening.
You well done. I think I agree with him, what he said. I agree with all that he has said.
So in moving forward, Mr. Howard, we need the writers with the kind of experience that you have to try and talk the talk about bringing writers together. Talk the talk. Masqueraders have to be mandated, like I said, because if they don't mandate it, it would not happen. It will just be a showcasing of bacchanalia and a kind of revelry that is, it's just party style.
Are you all of the view that the National Carnival Commission needs to become a little more involved? Let me say it in a different way. If it is, we have categories to masquerading. That there's a category of historical mass, and you want people to masquerade by way of themes, rather than. So in other words, when you create an agenda that this is what we judge it, the criteria is now historical mass. The criteria is, and you set
let me interject here, Farid. Those things, that kind of criteria is in place, You find the bands that masquerade will be small bands and to an extent medium bands.
Mm-hmm.
Bands that people try to come and play mass. We still have the Apache mass. What is happening now is that we have created what we call traditional mass, right? So that is for Jab Jab and Peregrinade and the Dame Lorraine. And I have no problem with putting that in a kind of category like that. But what I'm saying is that the big bands, the bands that will take the forefront with 10,000 masqueraders and stuff, they occupy most of the masquerading time that tells of carnival as just revelry and, as an old lady told me, a flesh parade that she isn't interested in seeing at her seniority. So what I'm saying is that there is the category there, but it doesn't seem as though we can get the big bands to do that to follow that sort of a masquerading.
Mr. Howard, we have 5 more minutes. I want to touch on an area, and I want your input on this. When I talk to persons of your generation, when we're reflecting in conversation, they often talk about long time when you had a party. You would always have a rhythm section. You would have a stateside steel band performing in the party. Now what we have is bands taking over. In the all-inclusives, we have big bands. They're performing. You may have more than one, depending on if it's I would imagine if it's QRC or Fatima, they could afford more than one big band. A school with a smaller budget may best be able to afford to bring one band. But we are not seeing the steel band in the parties anymore, or the brass in the party anymore. What would you account for in your life experience for that cycle to have broken?
Well, the people looking for change, like everything else, we look for change and we don't know exactly what we're looking for. We had the Brassarama, and what used to happen is the same musicians jumping from truck to truck. So it didn't work. It reached a stage where the bands were asking for good size money, and the mass bands decide we could hire a DJ, get the same music and a rhythm section, and so it's we were fighting each other down instead of trying to get to a point where how best could we make this thing work with what we have. And again, it comes to who have more corn, feed more fowl. Because the fella who making money don't care what you and I say.
Yeah.
He making money.
That's right.
Fella sell a swimsuit. The girl pay from New York. She pay in US. She come here, the pants can't fit her, they give her back the money, they give her in TT. If she had to convert that TT back to US now, what's she getting? Who talking about that? Who responsible? I know 3 cases of that happened 2 years ago.
Gentlemen, we reached that end point. I just would like to say that the carnival, the masqueraders who masquerade now in the bikini and beads and thing, most of that stuff are imported. At one time, Gypsy was asking that we manufacture our own stuff here. But I mean, we've reached the end of the program, and I don't want to go further. But soon we can have a conversation about that also.
Yeah.
Mr. Howard, we want to thank you for making yourself available to us. For all intents and purposes, for the listening public, we've been streaming, so we can review the show. You can share it with your friends.
Yes.
We're online. So hopefully
we stream live on Facebook and YouTube. And let me say hi to Iwat Rajpal, always a religious listener to the program.
Right. So hopefully, I'm saying that to say, Mr. Howard, the program isn't lost here. Long after we're finished here, the forces that be, the parliamentarians, the heads of the organizations, Pantry and Bago, Tuco, and so on, they will be able to hear what we're saying. And maybe we will have an impact. We could create a ripple in the stream that would cause some change. And we thank you for sharing that experience with us. we look forward to another occasion with you, and thanks again for the listening public for partaking in the discussion in terms of the listening part of it. Thank you so much, Mr. Howard. David, enjoy the rest of the evening. Be safe on your way home.
Yes, you too, Fareed and Mr. Howard. We'll talk soon again.
Okay, thanks again.
Okay,
Thanks so
you.
much. Blessings to the public.
Yeah.
That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk, Power 102 Digital Wednesday with Fareed Ali. Fareed will be back with me, well, next Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll get 2 bites of the cherry next week. So until then, be safe and stay locked on to Power 102 Digital.